So, Jason, let's define a new term. What is chain of lure?
So, chain of lure, I'm going to back up a tiny bit and explain what chain of thought is.
Okay.
Because that's really where the word comes from.
Okay. Chain of thought.
Chain of thought, COT. Any of you who have used the OpenAI O3 model or DeepSeek's R1 model, any of these, Gemini 2.5, it reasons before it gives you a full answer. And sometimes it can reason for a while. And what's fun is you can read the reasoning.
Okay.
And it gives you an enormous amount of insight about how it is interpreting your prompt. So great, chain of thought. That chain of thought is, the reason why it's called that is because as soon as you give your prompt, right, the reasoning engine starts to say, all right, here, what's the person telling me? How I'm going to solve it? What tools do I need? And this whole chain of thought is, if you want to read it, it is available to you in these very specialized reasoning models. Mm-hmm. All right. So kind of as an off-take to that, chain of lure is an attack method on generative large language models. And it really doesn't have that much to do with chain of thought, except that you could use chain of thought as a part of the chain of lure attack. So let me describe what the attack is.
Okay.
So you and I have talked about prompt injections, right? Which, getting unexpected things.
Yep.
AI that's connected to tools, especially tools that can talk to databases, carefully, if you are hooking up an AI to a public system or a system that you don't fully trust, that system could send inputs into the AI, which could be interpreted by such a way to like, hey, delete a table.
Right.
It's really no different than, what we saw with SQL injection attacks and things like that in the past, right?
Yep.
And so therefore, there were really good thoughts about how to solve for that. But prompt injections haven't really truly been completely solved yet, as we know. And that's scary to me. Mm-hmm. So let's heap on another problem, chain of lure. Okay. So I tell you, I've had fun trying to debias large language models. Because sometimes the bias can come in a couple ways. And maybe people have other words for what they would call it, but I call it bias. One of it, and I'm not talking about like political bias. Like every AI has its own place where it stands, and they're not completely 100% objective. One of the things that people try to overcome in censored large language models is whatever the censorship rule is might stop you from getting certain kinds of information.
Right.
If you ask for it directly.
Say, hey, give me the recipe for nitroglycerin. It says, nope.
Exactly.
Sorry, won't do it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So let's use that as an let's not use that as an exact example. I don't want to go there. Let's just say the censored thing.
Right.
You want to get it to talk about it or give you insights or just something.
Right.
I found that the ability to debias a censorship out of a large language model is to actually have my own chain of prompting. In other words, sometimes some interesting recursive thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asking it over and over and over again in different ways.
Right.
And especially when you can read its reasoning, because sometimes it gives away how it is keeping you censored in the reasoning. And so you can use that. And so the chain of lure is all about here, you're basically saying to it, come closer to what I want you to talk about.
Okay. So you want this censored, forbidden thing over here, and it is willing to give you this. So what you do is you get it to give you this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and it gradually creeps closer until you get it to the place that you want it to be.
I think you'll find, yes, the answer is yes. I think you'll find that AI, large language models, are kind of interesting in that you and I talked about how they can be deceptive if you give it.
Yes. The lie.
Yeah. It's incredible how if you give it conflicting directives,
Yeah.
you get what you ask for.
Sure.
And so if you really are getting what you ask for, you might get what you ask for. That's a strange way of saying AI is so helpful
Yeah.
that it will unfortunately turn your bad logic against you. And you shouldn't think of it as being malicious. It's just doing what you told it to do, right? In the case of those kinds of problems of deception in AI. But chain of lure is an interesting one where you're using its nature of following directives. Okay, but certain directives are unallowed. Okay, but it still wants to help you.
Right.
And I have found, I'm not going to get into it, and none of it's illegal or nefarious. It's fun to play with. How can I get you to do what you're trained not to do? And there are studies now, and in fact, that's where that term chain of lure comes from. There's a paper on it. You can go look it up. Right. Where I was amazed that, okay, this is a fun little game I'm playing personally sometimes with AIs. I think other people do it just naturally because it's fun just to see what the computer will say. But there are some researchers who are now codifying it, putting math to it, and saying, oh yeah, chain of lure is for real. And we don't know how to get rid of it.
And I think the implications of this could be quite sweeping, right? So my earlier example, I could go to the library and get that information. So the stakes there are fairly low. And I understand why maybe it's worth our while not to let our AIs tell people how to build bombs. But if you really don't want to know how to build bombs, that information is around. You can build bombs. But when you start to imagine a gentle AI, now if I can lure that into doing forbidden behaviors, I don't really have another avenue to go do that, right? So that's where it seems to me like this could be a very high stakes problem.
Yeah, it could be. And I think what's interesting about it is that you can flip it two ways. One is, good people, bad people trying to make a good AI do bad things. But there's also AI that has been censored in such a way where, somebody who's well-meaning just wants to use the power, the summarization power, or some other capability of a generative AI in order to produce an output which is merely censored. And nobody's going to get hurt over it. It's just a matter of, hey, I want you to analyze this and give me an answer. But what happens if, and we prognosticated this, what happens when we do have nation-state-based AI? And I think we're definitely going to go there because uncensored or very little censored AI at the moment allows you to do things such as plan your escape route as a dissident.
Right.
And what happens if, your nation state...
Assemble your arguments against the current government or... Sure, absolutely.
And so therefore, what happens if you really do need that and want that? Well, chain of lure is your way right now.
Aha.
So it's not about building bombs. It's quite often about just, you've been told by some authority to not give me X or not allow me to use your power for X, but you're gonna. And I'm gonna do my hardest, my darndest to get that out of you. And chain of lure is the study that just came out recently on the subject. My kind of rough, anecdotal, intuitive nature of working with computers said to me, geez, it's funny how I can kind of make the LLMs do what I want, if you just play with it enough. So my little bit of unstructured fidgeting is now like, it's got a word and it's got a scientific paper behind it. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Well, pretty cool. All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Tim.